The catch is made by DJ Moore, still going across midfield, inside the 40, the 30.
This is Desmond Johnson on the Bleav and Carolina Panthers podcast, here on the Bleav Podcast Network, the #1 podcast network for professionals. Do you believe? If you enjoy the show, please subscribe and rate the show on iTunes. We're available in your favorite directories: iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher, Luminary, and TuneIn. You can also find us at Bleav.com and at Bleav Podcast on Twitter. And welcome into a brand new edition of the Bleav in Carolina Panthers podcast. I'm your host, Desmond Johnson, joined by Sports Illustrated beat writer Schuyler Callihan and the most yards rushing in Carolina Panthers history, Mr. Jonathan Stewart, J. Stew in the house. Guys, we normally go earlier in the week. We decided to hold off a little bit due to Frank Reich's press conference on Tuesday. We were hoping we get a David Tepper sighting. We did. So we've got some audio so we can play a little respond react for you today. We'll get into what we heard during that press conference and what it might mean going forward. We've all had a week now to kind of sit on the hire. We'll go through the emotional roller coaster, so to speak, of Panther Nation as Frank Reich was hired as the sixth head coach in Panthers history. The GOAT Tom Brady retires. We'll give you our opinion on that man's career and if it's for good, like he said. I think it's for good. He'll be 46 in August. It's kind of wild to even question that. But with Tom Brady, you never know. It's open mailbag Thursday. So if you have a comment, a hot take, something about Coach Frank Reich, something about anything that's going on, David Tepper, anything with the Panthers, you can respond here on our on the YouTube channel at youtube.com/@Tobacco Road Sports Radio. And then, of course, on Facebook Watch when you can see this as well. The audio version will be available a little bit later on today. And it's also... if we got something, it's also Tell Em Why Youre Mad. So if you got something that you want to get off your chest that you've been holding on to for most of the week.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you why we mad, son. I'm going to tell you why we mad, son.
We give you the platform where you can do so. So buckle up. We got a whole lot of stuff to get to, and we're going to get to it here. But first, a word from our sponsors at Bet Online. Football is back. Bet Online remains your #1 source for all your football betting needs this season. You'll find the latest odds, matchup info, player news, and game trends. And as your continued source for all sports wagering info, Bet Online features live betting, free contests, live scores, and giveaways all season long. Always the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports and events like MLB, MMA, tennis, boxing, and even golf. Head to betonline.ag to join and receive your 100% welcome bonus with your first deposit. Make sure to use the promo code Bleav, BLEAV, to receive your rewards. Bet Online, where the game starts. And where we start this episode is to get caught up on Panther news from the past week. Schuyler, first things first, we can't seem to escape him. We go a couple of weeks and we don't mention his name, then we have to mention it anyway. Former head coach Matt Rhule back in Panther news again, filing an arbitration suit later last week against the franchise. He's claiming that they are refusing to pay Rhule's severance compensation following his firing from Carolina. What can you give us regarding this? It's 5 minutes, man.
There's really not much to it other than that. Everything's kind of been kept close to the chest with it. The Panthers don't want to respond to it or comment on it. I think the law firm that he hired, or the attorney that he hired, pretty much just put out that statement, and that was pretty much it. So I don't know where this is going to go. I know that there's some rule that if a coach takes another job that's a higher position or significantly higher paid or something like that, that doesn't have, like, the Panthers wouldn't be obligated to do that. But because he did so, I think that's why he's going after. But Carolina's like, whoa, you took a college job. Yeah. But in that rule, it doesn't say anything about college jobs. So that's kind of the gray area with this. So I'm really interested to see kind of where it goes. And I know people were kind of getting mad about it and saying, oh, like, you already got enough money and all this stuff. Hey, I mean, come on, man. Like, if you have a chance to get $5 million, I don't care how much money you got. Like, you're going to go out and $1 million. So
everybody knows how much I love to clown Matt Rhule. In this instance, I'm like, hey, man, that's supposed to be your money. If that was what the contract said, then go get your money. I can't really hate you on that, but we'll see. Stu, I wanted to get your comment on a hire, potentially. Deuce Staley reportedly joining the Panthers. He's a Lions assistant head coach and running backs coach. working with offensive coordinator Ben Johnson, who had been rumored to be in the running for an interview with us for head coach. Dan Graziano on Wednesday tweeted out that running backs coach Deuce Staley would be joining the Panthers staff. What do you know about Deuce? Played for the Eagles. Who else did he play for? He played for the Eagles.
The Steelers.
Yeah, so Eagles and
he went to the Steelers at the end there.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about Deuce. Did you come across him? He was on the coaching staff for the Eagles from 2011 to 2020, so he knows Frank Reich pretty well. But thoughts on Deuce Staley coming over?
Yeah, I don't really know him personally, but from what I have gathered, once again, Kenyon Barner and LeGarrette Blount, they were under him when they won the Super Bowl when Frank Reich was there. And Deuce Staley, from what I've retained, is he's a guy's guy, and when you get a player coach that has been through the grind, especially at that position, because especially the running back position, I'm not really sure what his role is going to be for the Panthers, but I know he'll have some say in the sense of what the running backs are doing. Him being one of the Philadelphia greats, he brings a grit and an extra tick, because the running back position, for the most part, the personalities are pretty even keel, kind of mellow, like kind of stay to ourselves, never too high, never too low. Every now and then you'll get, one of the ones that are, a black sheep. But for the most part, we're just kind of, mellow, driven throughout practice, throughout the game. We're just consistent, right? But it's always good to have someone that can challenge you from a different vantage point, which is, hey, I'm not getting the most out of you right now, and I need to do that. And it seems like through the clips that I've seen of him, coaching and being on the sidelines with his guys, he has passion. He brings a whole sense of passion to the sport, and to this younger generation of what it takes to win games and what it takes to be a professional at this level. And it doesn't and one of those things is not just coasting. Don't coast. And I feel like, people can get complacent, with what their roles are. And he seems like a guy that has a culture about him that says, no, we're not staying the same. Every day we're going to get better. And that fits right into Frank Reich's protocol, from his press conference. And so, and you can't really have that type of coaching style from any coach either, right? Because as a player, you can't just have a guy that just comes in the room and, and says, hey, you're going to do what I say, you're going to do it my way. And if you don't do it, then hit the highway. But you can get that kind of coaching every now and then from a guy that has a track record. Because, okay, it's coming from Deuce, I believe it then. He's been there, he's done that, he's been through it. It's something that I can trust and believe in.
And I think that's part of the reason why you saw such a big buy-in with Steve, because he'd been through it. He's been in the league for years. Matt had just come from college. So there's probably a little bit of trust issues, I would have to imagine. I mean, I'm talking to some of the players, they didn't really talk about Matt Rhule specifically, but they just talked about how Steve had been in the league for so long as a coach and had seen so much that his tutelage is probably taken. I'm not speaking for them, but I would say probably take it a little bit more seriously. And yeah, I mean that plays a huge factor. And plus with Deuce, this is a guy that's really well respected around the league. Probably had some opportunities to be an OC at some point. And I mean, if I'm just being honest with you, he may be a guy that could be a head coaching candidate here in a few years.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I mean, I personally, and now we're a week removed from the the announcement of Frank Reich and everything, all three of us, Panther Nation, we've all had a week now to kind of sit and marinate on the whole thing. I've kind of come back 360 to this is a good hire. Like, I'm sorry, this is a good hire. This is a damn good hire. Matter of fact, like if Steve Wilkes hadn't existed and we hired Frank Reich, I think everyone would be talking about how the Panthers stole Frank Reich. Like, literally, like it feels like it fits like a hand in a glove. And I think for me, I was when they first announced Frank Reich, we already started thinking in our heads that they might be leaning that way anyway. So it wasn't that much of a surprise when it happened. But I think for me, I realized over the weekend after we did our episode last week that all the reasons I like Steve Wilkes, Frank Reich has them too. Like, literally. And he's got a couple more boxes checked that Steve unfortunately didn't have. And on my Saturday morning show, I was talking about it with the panel, and none of them are Panther fans or not affiliated with them at all. So, of course, they're just going to constantly, get at me about the Panthers. And they were kind of clowning me about, matter of fact, you know what? That was one of the things I forgot. That was one of the reasons why I was mad.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you why we mad, son.
They were clowning me because I was saying, well, Reich is from this area too. And that was one of the reasons why we like Steve Wilkes, was because he was from this area. He understands what it is. And I was like, well, Frank Reich's been here too. He's lived here 20 years. So he raised a family here. Like, it's the same thing. And they were like, oh, so if you live in Charlotte, then you're qualified to be a head coach for the Panthers. No, but it helps. It helps a lot to like understand the community. And for Frank Reich to already be ingrained in the community, to me, that was one of the selling factors for me, along with the fact that looking at his resume, I mean, my man's been some spots and they've put up some points. Like, they've done some stuff. It ain't just like smoke and mirrors. Like, he's one of the top offensive minds probably in the game. And for Panther Nation, we've never had that. Like, I'm excited about that. And then someone else mentioned to me too, I think it was Kevin Avery from the 4-Man Rush. It was somebody where they were like, well, look at it this way. If you had hired Steve Wilkes as head coach and he brings in the next hot shot offensive coordinator, more than likely you're going to be replacing that offensive coordinator in 2 years because they're going to be moving on to a head coaching job. You're going to be in this constant cycle of replacing the OC. Whereas if Frank is the head coach and he's the offensive mind, you're not switching your offense every 2 years when the offensive coordinator leaves. It's still going to be his offense, and you can still instill your defense and everything else. And more than likely, the way the league is, they're aiming towards the offensive candidates. So you can probably keep your staff together. And I didn't think about it that way. Which is
one of the things that I gathered too, though, from Frank's press conference was he mentioned, the formula to winning, right? And the first thing he did mention was defense. And that's probably what was so attractive about this opportunity, is because our defense is solid.
Yeah.
A couple more pieces here and there, some depth. Like, it's a top 5 defense. You know what I'm saying?
I agree. Yeah.
And he said top 10 defenses win you games, and top 5 defenses win you championships. And so it's a different mindset when you have an OC-minded head coach that actually acknowledges the defense is what really wins us games.
Yeah.
Because now he sees his job as an enhancement to that formula.
And not forget about special teams too. I mean, the Panthers special teams have been phenomenal.
That was actually the other bit of news I needed to get to before we got to Respond React. One of the other things during that show Saturday that I was getting hammered with was that the Panthers are going to have to rebuild from scratch with a new coaching staff. And I was like, nah, I think they're going to retain some folks. A couple days later, the Panthers retained O-line coach James Campen and special teams coordinator Chris Tabor from the previous staff. The special teams unit, like you said, Schuyler in particular, I think the Panthers were ranked 4th overall in special teams. And James Campen, this is another former player. He played for the Saints, if I'm not mistaken. And the O-line might be the one group out of the entire team that had the most improvement from week 1 to the very end of the year. Like, the O-line carried us like the last half of the season, and Campen had a lot to do with that. So the fact that Frank Reich came in and wasn't on a whole all right, everybody clear out. I want my guys. I don't need to keep any of this. All y'all are nonsense. Nah, he was like, yo, the O-line was good. Keep that dude.
Yeah.
Hey, special teams on top 5. Keep that guy. Like, let's not make this harder than it needs to be. So I respect that greatly. So they're still putting the roster, not the roster, still putting the staff together. But it does feel like, to your point, Stu, there's going to be a lot of former players on his staff, I think, when it's all said and done. And I like the fact that press conference that there were Panthers there. They were there to show support. Like that means something. Like to have they had, I think Icky was there, and I think Dante Jackson was there. And like they had dudes that are like core parts of this team that were there representing. And Frank Wright pointed it out. Like he was like, he went straight to them actually when the press conference was over, if I'm not mistaken, to talk to the players. So he gets it. Like, yes, you can be upset about Wilkes not getting it, but also agree it was a good hire. It was what Twin Zito 81 is saying here. It's open mailbag Thursday, so you guys can put your comments up. I think I was there last week. I'm not honestly. Steve Wilkes might end up being the next defensive coordinator for the San Francisco 49ers. So I'm like, my man might end up falling into a situation where
I'm just saying there's a trend there. The last defensive coordinators, Robert Saleh and Dimitri Brown, head coach.
Yep.
Maybe this is how Steve finally gets his actual chance as a head coach. But
give Steve Wilkes that defense, that roster. He'll be someplace. He'll be coaching. I'm trying to think of a team that's going to probably bottom out.
Broncos. The Broncos.
They just signed Sean Payton, apparently.
Arthur Smith's probably going to be gone next year, so
he'll be right back in the NFC South coaching the Falcons next year. So don't be too sad for Steve, man. He going to land on his feet. Like he showed enough. And that was what I was really concerned about, was that the rest of the league wouldn't notice what he did. Clearly they did.
Prediction. Well, it's not even really a bold prediction. It's more of a gut feeling. Because I don't want to go that far and say this is definitely going to happen. But since I started like really thinking about this whole Frank Reich hire, because like at first I told you guys I really didn't have much of an opinion on it. I was like, okay, it's seems safe, seems conservative. But when you look at his track record and what he has done, I mean, people can say what they want about how bad the quarterback situation was in Indy. But from everything I've gathered, that wasn't 100% him. Like that was a lot of the front office kind of messing some things up. And you go back to what he did in Philly. I mean, how often does a backup quarterback take you
to the Super Bowl?
Right.
And the damn thing.
And won the MVP.
Yeah.
I mean, and again, like you take
that's a true credit to Frank because of his preparation, having those guys prepared, like starters. That's the biggest thing. Like as a coach, your job is to prepare every single person in that room to be a starter. And that's exactly what he proved.
He slid right in. There was no drop off.
Last week was like, I don't think that Frank's going to have a hard time getting these players to buy in because we've seen it in Indianapolis. Like there's some clips of like Nyheim Hines and stuff saying, I got your back, coach, and stuff like that. And had that been a problem, he wouldn't have made it to year 5.
Right.
So I don't think that's going to be an issue. When you look at the defense, and this is where I'm going with this, I'm not saying they're going to, but there is a path for the Panthers to win a Super Bowl in the next 4 years.
I saw your article. I read the article, and I read through it, and I'm like,
there is a path.
This makes sense. But if I tried to tell anybody outside of Panther Nation this, they would throw things at me and be like, you're crazy. They always use our past against us. Like, y'all have never won anything. What makes you think you're going to win something? That's how it goes down. The Bulls never won a title until 1991. You know what I mean?
If this is the first time you're turning into the show or you're fairly new to a show, if you don't know this, I'm very, very unbiased. And as these guys know, like I don't pick the Panthers every game. I tell it how it is. I give my true opinions on the games. So when I say this, I truly mean it. I do think Carolina has a path to the Super Bowl within the next 4 years because you look at that defense, you look at that offensive line, you've got DJ Moore under contract. Like Brian Burns is going to get an extension here soon. And all you have to do, and this is what Scott Fitterer has been talking about for the last 12, 16 months, is we want to get this roster to a point to where all you got to do is just drop a quarterback in there and you take off. And right now, that roster is built for that.
Yep.
Now, they've got to add a couple of pieces here and there, yes. But you add a quarterback to this team that's a consistent, reliable guy. You look around the South. I mean, come on now. This is the Panthers' division to take.
It makes sense. And I never understood the whole 7-year plan, the whole Jay-Z Rockefeller plan, or whatever was going on with that. I never understood it because
that works in college. That works in college,
yeah, when you can build on classes. But in NFL, it only takes a year or two. It literally nowadays you can
boom, 1 year.
Yeah, look at the Bengals. The Bengals they've been in 2 AFC Championship games, and they won 1 game or something the year they picked Burrow 2 years ago.
Cincinnati and Jacksonville. What was the key factor to turning those teams around?
Quarterback,
a coach, and a quarterback.
Yep, and not just any quarterback, like a top tier.
Opportunity this year.
That's important. It's a top tier quarterback. Like Joe Burrow and Trevor Lawrence are not Sam Darnold. Sorry, Sam.
They're not random Joes.
Yeah, there are levels to this. So that's actually a good place to start Respond React, because one of the clips I pulled was Frank Reich when he was asked by the media in the media portion about stability at quarterback.
You got to have stability at quarterback. You want to have stability at quarterback. So the good thing that I've learned in my past experience here, in a few years, is we've learned how to adapt to different styles of quarterbacks, but that's not the ideal situation, right? So we, Mr. Tepper, Scott, myself, have to commit to what's our blueprint, how are we going to maintain stability at quarterback, make a plan, and then execute that plan.
Thoughts on what Frank said? Because that makes sense to me. All that's common sense, really. We just kind of skipped around it during the Matt Rhule era.
I mean, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, I think, like it seems like everything that they're doing now is very
seems very NFL like.
Yeah.
It's new to us. It's a new world here. Like we don't know what to do with it.
And I'm not trying to take a shot at Matt, but like it felt like he wanted to change the entire process of everything that an NFL franchise does and do
by
it
himself.
Yes.
By himself. Yeah.
Exactly.
And
Much
the league, man, you got to be innovative. You have to collaborate. And so that's what's happening right now. Those are the words that are being said is essentially, we're going to collaborate. Every leader in this organization will be at the table that needs to be at the table to help make decisions. Yeah. And that's the way it should be. And so I think one of the things to point out about this quarterback situation is he did say that he wanted, he believed in a mobile quarterback. And so obviously that's going to go into their decision-making as far as what is their formula offensively. What do they believe in offensively? And I do believe running the ball is a part of that. And so, going from there, we'll see we'll see what really is up Scott Fitterer's, hand or sleeve. But I mean, the world's our oyster right now. I feel like everything that we've talked about throughout the year has kind of like went upside down, right? Because I mean, even like the quarterback talk, like it's like, I wouldn't draft a quarterback. It's like, now we have our situation's a little different. It's like our Pandora's box per se, because we now have like this whole like switch in mentality, which is offensively driven. And
it feels weird. It feels so weird.
Now it's like retraining your focus as a fan to look at this whole thing holistically. Like, there's a whole like opportunity out there that we have no clue what it's gonna look like as a fan.
I will say I've watched more tape now. That's the off season, and I'm coming around on CJ Stroud.
Okay,
CJ.
All right. Okay.
I like CJ Stroud. I'm not there yet with Bryce Young just because of his size. It scares me a little bit, but I'll go ahead and mark it down now. The Carolina Panthers will be drafting CJ Stroud.
CJ Stroud.
Spicy.
February 2nd. Mark it down. So when it happens, you know where you heard it.
Yeah, because I'm kind of I haven't seen enough tape on Stroud yet, but I saw him in the playoff game.
Dude lit it up.
It sounds like, from the way they're talking, like Reich and Fitterer, it sounds like they're kind of prepping themselves to move up. Now, how far up they go, I have no idea. We're at 9. You've said it previously, Schuyler, probably no further than 5, I would think. But CJ might be gone before that. So
that's ideally, though. I mean, you would like to have to move up any further than that. But the reality is, like, in the draft, everybody's going to be desperate for quarterbacks. So you're probably going to have to go a little higher than you want, whether that's 2 or 3 or hell, maybe even up to 1. Like, I mean, Chicago seems like they're probably going to move off that first pick. And if they do, then you kind of got to figure out, like, if you're Carolina, like, okay, if they're opening up the number 1 pick and say Detroit's interested, okay, well, then you may have to make a push for number 1 if you really got your eyes set on somebody. Because if not, they're going to take him.
I mean, that's literally what they're telling us. They're telling us, like, if there's a guy that you fall in love with that you really want, you got to go get that guy. That was Fitterer's words. So as soon as he said it, I was like, oh, they're going to trade up for CJ Stroud. Like, they're already talking about it. Like, that was part of Reich's, like, pitch or something when they went in, and they're going to keep it close to the vest. Coach Reich, he had an interview with Kristen Balboni that night, I think, that he got announced that he was going to be the hire. So I went to go find it. It's like 5 minutes long on YouTube, but it's like at his house, real comfortable setting. They were talking, and he said the stuff I wanted to hear from him. He mentioned it again. He was asked at the press conference about why Carolina was the perfect fit, and we've echoed on it earlier in this episode, but I wanted to put it out there in Coach Reich's words himself as to why Carolina was the perfect fit.
What drew you to the city?
Introduced our daughters. They were all raised here. We lived here for 13 years before, transitioning full time. So, one of our daughters, our youngest daughter Hannah, was born here, but they were all raised here, went to school here, high school, the whole deal. So this was home. This was instantly home for us. We had 10 years up in Buffalo, which were amazing 10 years playing up there, and then I played for 3 other teams as I finished my career. But when we were looking at, hey, where's home base going to be long term? It was the Carolinas. It's always been the Carolinas for Linda and I. We've been, like I said, we've been married a long time. And when we started talking about where do we want home base to be, we just fell in love with this area, with this city. And so this has always been part of the master plan. And then to think I get to come back and do it as the head coach, that's insane to me. So let's go.
I mean,
let's go.
Yeah,
let's go.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, yeah, let's do this. Let's go. So, I mean,
find somebody to make T-shirts and have it say, Frank Reich says, "Let's go."
So, I mean, if you had any doubts,
print that off, make some money.
If you had any doubts about why didn't they hire Steve Wilkes, and we'll get into David Tepper's comments regarding some of the stuff regarding diversity and whatnot here in a bit, but if you had any doubts, and I know we were one of the main shows pushing Steve Wilkes like the whole year. So I get it. If you came here and you're expecting us to just be like with pitchforks and like, Steve Wilkes. But I'd like to think the 3 of us are pretty rational humans and we understand it's a business. And I mean, I think the worry was that he didn't get it because he was African-American. I never caught that vibe at all. It felt like Frank Reich just came in with a better interview and then crushed it on the second one. And his resume is just, unfortunately, just longer than Coach Wilkes.
To be honest, like if Steve was the quote unquote offensive mind, I think he would have had the job 3 weeks ago.
Yep, I agree with that too. Yeah,
because he's on the defensive side, like that's probably the biggest thing that hindered his chances. But I mean, I think somebody said in the comments, and we've said it numerous times too, like you can be upset and ticked off for Steve because he absolutely deserved this opportunity. But when you look at what Frank Reich brings to the table, it's kind of hard not to get a little excited about it and understanding as to why that's the direction they went in.
Mad, but we understand it. And now I want Panther Nation to get to the acceptance stage and to get to that stage of excitement, because we haven't had a draft in Panthers history where we've had offensive minds in the room. Like, they can go in here and like mess some stuff up. Like, in a good way.
Not only do you have that, but you have like the perfect storm for an offensive explosion in terms of transactions, because your defense is pretty damn set. Like, yeah, you're going to have to probably add a safety or a linebacker or edge pass rusher, but you got a lot of things that you could add to that offense. You need to get another receiver. You could add to the running back room. You're going to have to get a quarterback. Probably wouldn't hurt to get a tight end. So there's going to be a lot of opportunities where Carolina's, like Scott Fitterer said, this is their chance to start taking some shots on some guys and be a little sexy in the draft.
And he typically, what he says he does, like when he first got there, he was talking about moving up and down the board, getting picks and stuff. And then that first draft, he was all over the board, just picking up extra picks and turned those into players that actually played with Carolina.
Do we want to talk about Matt? Do we want to talk about Matt Corral at all?
Because I was actually we haven't really seen him.
Because we haven't seen him play.
Yeah,
we've seen bits and pieces and whatnot, but I feel like under this new regime, Matt Corral has a different ceiling. I know that under this regime than he did with the one before.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot that we should be really excited about. Like, just come to think about it, like we have a coaching staff that's being formulated to enhance the players, and so especially on the offensive side of the ball, like Matt Corral, if I'm him right now, you know, I'm getting healthy and I'm getting my mind right to be a guy, you know what I'm saying?
To be honest, like Matt Rhule, even though he did a lot of things wrong, obviously, he did get something right in terms of he knows that, like, in the NFL, a quarterback being healthy for 17 games is very, very rare, even in today's game. Like, even the best guys are missing a game or two. Lamar Jackson, half the season. So, like, the big thing is Matt Corral, I think, needs to take the approach of, like, I'm going to be the starter, even though in the back of his mind he probably understands what the team's plans are going to be. But he needs to be like what P.J. Walker was these last 3 years and stay ready because, as we've seen, there's going to be a time where that starter gets hurt, and now Matt Corral's got an opportunity to prove himself. Maybe not to Carolina, maybe to other teams.
To someone else around the league. And that's exactly the mindset that the guys in the locker room, you get guys, you know, special teams or practice squad, and it's a long grind, bro. Like, I mean, throughout the season, like, it's a grind. And for guys that have, you know, their families bouncing around and not having job security, like, the message is, hey, bro, just hang in there and just keep balling. Keep practicing hard. Keep preparing, because you never know when your number's going to be called. Because you don't want to be that guy when your number's called and you don't show up and you're not ready, then you miss not just that opportunity, but you miss the opportunities for a lifetime. Hey. And so, like, you got to prepare like you are the starter. Like, when I got into the league, like my rookie year, it was me and D'Angelo. Me and D'Angelo competed and practiced and prepared like we were both the starters. Because at any given time, which happened often, one of us was going to get hurt. You know what I'm saying? So, like, if you're not ready, it's not going to pan out for you. So stay ready. Stay ready so you don't have to get ready.
That's I was gonna say. My grandpa used to say that all the time. If you stay ready, you ain't got to get ready, and that's facts. Right. So
the biggest problem here for Matt Corral, is that, like, this coaching staff that's coming in did not draft him. They did not scout him. The guy that really, really kind of, you know, I wouldn't say pounded at the table, but really kind of pushed for him, Ben McAdoo, probably not going to be here. So how does Reich and how does the offensive staff view Matt Corral, a guy who they did not get any tape on last year, except for a few snaps in preseason play? So it's kind of and I guess for maybe Corral, it could be a good thing. It's a blank canvas, but sometimes that's not always the best thing. So I don't know. I think it's a tough situation for Corral because he thought he was going to be potentially the future of the franchise, and now here he is not having any opportunity, it really seems like, at least here.
And the thing with him too, coming off of a foot injury and him being a mobile quarterback coming out of college, we don't necessarily know exactly what we're getting with him. Again, though, I'm kind of done with betting the farm on unknowns. You know, like at this point, we kind of know what we need. We need a franchise quarterback, the face of the franchise quarterback. And I don't know if that's Matt Corral. I don't think it will be. It could be CJ Stroud. I'm actually kind of warming up to drafting Anthony Richardson at 9 now, based off the comments that Reich was saying about how he wants a guy that's mobile, the run game, the comments he made about that. Richardson's really raw, but he kind of reminds me of Cam a little bit.
Yeah,
Cam was more polished.
Athletic.
He's super athletic. You put him with Frank Reich for like a off-season mini camps, installing the playbook from the very beginning, like getting him in there. And then you're going to have a run game for him to lean on. You can run some RPO, which he was doing with Carson Wentz. And that was another thing, too. People were kind of clowning Carson Wentz or whatever. Carson Wentz got a $100 million contract because of Frank Reich. Like, Frank Reich's the one that was actually.
And if you look at his
11 and 2, you know,
when you look at his staff, at his stats when Frank Reich took the Colts head job, his numbers were not as good.
Yeah.
And when he came to Indianapolis in that 1 year in Indy, and I know he probably didn't have that, there was a couple of games he probably liked to have back. But when you look at the numbers, he only turned the ball over 7 times.
Yeah.
He threw for 27 touchdowns. I'm sure Carolina fans would be loving to have those types of numbers from their quarterback.
Now, wait, I want to put out there, we're not saying we want to go get Carson Wentz and bring him to Carolina. So let's not have that as a soundbite. Bleav, if y'all are listening, we don't want Carson Wentz. But what he did with Carson Wentz has been blown out of proportion. I think a lot of people are thinking Carson Wentz is trash, blah, blah, blah. Without Reich, he played, and he had some injuries. But with Reich, those are the best years of his career to date, and he got an extension out of it and was an MVP candidate. So Frank Reich can do this. Frank Reich, he's about his business when it comes to quarterbacks. I wanted to get to David Tepper because it's a treat when we get to hear from the owner. This is the fifth time. This is the fifth time now David Tepper's spoken publicly since he's bought the team. He bought the team 2017. Is that right?
Something like that.
So he speaks about once a year, and this was his opportunity to speak. The audio is courtesy of our friend Vashti Hurt over at Carolina Blitz. The first thing I wanted to go on was his comment about CEO coaches, because that perked my ear when he said it, because it kind of felt like he was throwing a little shade towards a Matt Rhule, and then he doubled down on it, and I got them both. So,
yeah, look, I mean, it's great to have a CEO coach. It's preferable to have a coach that's really extraordinary on one side of the ball or the other side of the ball. It makes you have to fill those key coordinator positions when you have it. And, you want to have, like I said, a guy that's committed to get the best coaches in the building and has done a lot of homework, as I said, in our process, and presented that and rethought about it again and again and again, and continues to think about that. And is willing to give up on other coaches to get the best people in the building. When I say the best people in the building, top 10 coaches, okay? We're not going to have the best person in every position, but, every position coach, but top 10 people. It should be an absolute standard.
All right. Thoughts on Tepper's initial comments regarding learning his lesson? That's what I gathered from these comments, is that people have wanted to say David Tepper's stubborn and he's this and he's that. And they don't know the man. We've talked about this on the show. They don't know David Tepper from Adam. They've never met him before. So they don't know what his temperament is. They're just assuming he's these things from what they've seen the team do. From all of this stuff the past 10 days, it makes me feel like the man learns from his mistakes. Like, if he makes a mistake, he's willing to admit he made it, and then he's going to go and fix what he did. Like, that's how he got to where he is in life today. So, it was comforting to hear him say
millions of times before they become a billion. So, right. He knows exactly what he has to do now. And, I mean, if you just look at the difference between the first coaching search that he had and this one, night and day. They went through that first one like a breeze. I think they interviewed, I want to say maybe 3 other people outside of Matt, and that was it. They didn't do a second round.
They were done first round of the playoffs or something, January. Yeah.
Yes, I mean, Matt Rhule had just barely finished his season and had already been named the head coach of the Panthers. So, for this time, they went and they interviewed 9 people, went through a second round of interviews. It was a very thorough process, and I think if you're a Panther fan, that's got to at least have you feeling a little bit better about this time around.
And they had a plan. Last time around, it felt like they just wanted to find that guy that could do everything for them, and he learned that you couldn't do it like that.
They wanted to be like Stu kind of mentioned earlier, to do it yourself and stuff like that. It's almost like he wanted to go outside the box and be the first guy to, I got you. I got the best college coach to come up here and kill it in the NFL. Well, that doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. History shows that.
Yeah. So, I mean, he learned his lesson. And I think from his comments and what they've done, plus too, keep in mind, they were interviewing defensive coordinator candidates while they were still interviewing head coaching candidates. It feels like Scott Fitterer is the one that's really putting the staff together, which is different than before. Because when Rhule was hired, wasn't Marty Hurney still the GM, or he had just came back? Was that right?
Yeah, I think he was. Yeah,
and it was almost like you didn't really know how much authority Marty had because they gave so much to Rhule. This is totally different. Like Frank Reich's coming in. He made a comment in the press conference. I didn't clip it, but where someone asked him, who's controlling what or whatever. And he was basically like, Scott controls the 53-man roster, and I control it on Sunday, like for the most part, but it'll be collaborative in terms of what we're doing. He just said the right things, like the stuff I wanted to hear from the new coach and what they're going to do going forward. They're going to keep the good stuff that came out of last year. They know what's missing. They know what they got to go get. They got the tools to go get it. They got the minds in place to do it now. And they're young. They're a young team. They're probably one of the 5 youngest teams in the NFL. Like, if the whole defense is young. It never made sense bringing like a vet QB, like a 30-plus-year-old QB, when the entire team is under the age of 28 or whatever. So I think they may possibly move up in the draft. Tepper, though, doubled down on his CEO comment. This is what actually perked my ears, was when he went into this.
And then the second challenge you have is, and I made this mistake, I think it's a mistake to have a CEO type head coach, okay? That's a mistake, just in general. That's what I kind of believe. So I think you want to get somebody who's really good on offense or really good on defense. And, we think that Frank, is really good on offense. He's a guy that, proves his grit, his personal grit when he was a quarterback, and these comebacks he had, like at Maryland and Buffalo. And he's a guy that will never stop fighting and never stop trying to have this team be successful, period.
Thoughts on that? I thought it was funny that the arbitration suit came out like 3 hours like after Tepper's comments. I was like, God, we in a petty war right now between these two men, but I'm here for it. I'm here for the petty. Y'all know that. Thoughts on Tepper's comments regarding that? Like, does it feel like, do you feel better about David Tepper being the owner, or did you ever feel bad about it? Because there's a segment.
I don't think I've ever felt bad about it. What I've gathered, man, is Rome wasn't built in a day, but expectations of excellence need to be there. And I think what has been realized is that the winning mentality, especially in the NFL, at the NFL level, complacency cannot be anywhere. Can't be anywhere within the organization. That's from the top to the bottom. And right now, I feel like we're in the midst of seeing the Carolina Panthers really dive back into the culture, dive back into what it means to win, what it means to show up every day, even when you lost yesterday, with the mentality that you are about to win the day. And when I was at Oregon, University of Oregon, Mike Bellotti was our coach. And our slogan was win the day. Everything we did in the classroom, like at the house, practice, whatever it is, win that day, win the moment. And it's a mindset. And so you want to talk about brands and all these types of things of, what you are as a team. You're tough and you're physical and you're fast and explosive. I think one of the things that, this whole CEO mentality is a CEO is kind of good at a lot of things, right? You're good enough at things to handle everything, right? To handle everything. Not necessarily win at everything, but handle it, be in the mix, understand it, and delegate, right? We can delegate. CEOs can delegate to the moon. But in order to really be good at something, you got to dial in. And you got to dial in on one thing or the other. And I think that's what Tepper has realized is, man, like, I'm going to go get the best offensive coordinator or offensive mind out there. Because right now, the Carolina Panthers are struggling on offense. So if there is a hole in the bucket on the offensive side, and we just continue to pour water in there, and there's a hole at the bottom, Nothing's going to be success. We ain't going to find no success. So I'm going to go and fill that. I'm going to go fill that hole at the bottom there, seal it all up with Frank Reich. And so I think this is a great move, man.
I was going to say too, both Reich and Tepper, I've got one more audio from Tepper here. They have both kind of said the whole, this isn't a situation when we're talking about the staff and everything. This isn't a situation where you just bring in guys you know and that kind of thing. Like they've been very pointedly saying these things that we're not doing the CEO approach. We're not doing bringing your buddies in here. Like we're going to bring the best guys at these spots, and they're showing that so far. Deuce Staley is actually highly revered around the league as a running backs coach. James Campen might be one of the best offensive line coaches in the league, like bar none. Like he might be the one. Tabor might be the best special teams coach in the whole league. Like there's not a lot of argument with that. Like so they're recognizing it and they're rewarding it, which I like. And to me, that's all I really wanted to find out from David Tepper. Do you learn from your mistakes? Like, do you, as an owner, are you going to be like, I hate them on the bus, but my man Jerry Jones, you gonna be like Jerry Jones and try the same thing for 20 years and hope that one year it sticks and it works? Or are you able to adapt on your feet and move and go with the strength of your team or the vibes of the league or whatever the trend is? Are you able to move your team forward with it? And are you also willing to take risks?
You want to know one of the things that I think separates Tepper from someone like Jerry Jones is Tepper realizes that, I mean, he's a billionaire for a reason. He removes all emotion to his decisions. And I feel like that is the key component to success running any business, any organization, a football team, a soccer team, whatever it is. You have to remove emotion. I think Jerry Jones is too emotional about his Dallas Cowboys.
He's too attached, man, to his players.
He's too attached. He's attached to the coaching staff. He's attached to everything. Like you can be there's a thin line, bro. Like you accepted the opportunity to have ownership in a team, an NFL team, and so the expectation is that you have to make decisions that most likely will hurt a lot of people's feelings. You know what I'm saying?
Like this one.
and do what's best for the organization, for the fans, even if the fans don't know what's best for them. And so these things are learned, but they're learned, but there has to be application. And I think the encouraging thing right now is we're seeing, David Tepper, our owner, the Carolina Panthers, like doing something that a lot of owners don't do, which is make the hard decisions.
Yeah.
And so I think we can commend him on that.
Comments rolling in pretty fast here. Thanks to everybody that's watching this new episode of Bleav in Panthers. Brad Thomas commented, do you guys think Foreman is re-signed or did they roll with Chuba and a drafted rookie? It sounds like they're going to try to re-sign Foreman because Reich actually name dropped him in that press conference as one of the reasons why he came here. So with the offensive line, I don't think you're going to find a running back in this draft that's going to give you what Foreman gives you just next year. And the love of Charlotte. He loves being here. So that all comes back. You got to love being here. Like, this whole idea that you can just play football wherever. If you're playing in Green Bay and you hate the cold and you hate Green Bay, you're going to hate the Green Bay Packers. You're going to hate playing for them. But you know what I mean? Like it's just natural common sense.
Deontay,
culture. It's all about the culture, bro.
All about the culture.
Deontay's a guy that I've talked to numerous times, and a lot of them throughout the year. And I'm actually going to try to get him on our show at some point this offseason. I got to get in touch with his agent. But, I mean, he's a guy that loves Carolina, and really the biggest reason is because this is really his first opportunity to be the guy in the NFL. And he talked to me about it at length. I think I have an article up somewhere on it from a couple of months ago, or right from when the season ended when I spoke to him last. But yeah, I mean, he wants to be here. If the number's right and Frank Reich wants him to be here, then yeah, I think they're going to find a way to get it done. Because I don't think he's going to want, money was never a thing for him. When I talked to him, he's like, I'm not trying to get all the bag. Like, he's like, yeah, I want to get paid, but like, I'm not trying to, demand like I need this certain amount
out. Yeah.
I don't think that's going to be an issue.
Willie Smith, Bleav Panther super fan. I know he's still down about Wilkes not getting the job. He says the culture that Wilkes got Panthers back to. Does Tepper Bleav in the keep pounding culture? I keep asking the same question. I Bleav he does. Maybe he came in thinking it wasn't a big deal, but he has been converted in the 5 years he's been here. Remember, I think it was for one game. They took away the keep pounding drum, and it wasn't out there at the beginning of a game or whatever. And everybody was like, where the hell is the keep pounding drum? And that thing was back 6 days later. Like, there was so much like an uproar about it. I don't think David Tepper really understood. And all that goes back to what I was saying before, Willie. This goes to Tepper too. Like, Matt Rhule didn't understand the culture here. And I think by default, David Tepper didn't either, because he's not from here. He was a Steeler minority owner. Like, he understands culture, but he didn't understand ours. And I think this was a crash course in him understanding, oh, okay, this is how you guys do it. This is what you expect. This is what you want out of a coach. This is what you want out of a leader. And I think he's come back around full circle on it with this hire. He hires a former Panther. He goes for what he said he wanted, an offensive-minded coach. He's got connections here. He's keeping guys in the organization, regardless if they're hired by Matt Rhule or not. If they're good at what they do, he's keeping them. So, I think he's rounded a corner on that. All I can say, Rhule, come on, bro.
I think if you take a rookie that gets drafted this year, any rookie, and you place them in that locker room, right? First year, first experience with the head coach. It's going to take that player probably a whole year to tell you what the culture is of the Carolina Panthers, because he doesn't know. He's never been in Carolina. He doesn't know everything about Carolina. You can read articles and all these types of things, but you won't really gather that perspective until you're in it. And that rookie player is in the locker room every day. And it's going to take him that long to gather appropriate answer of what the culture of the locker room and what the Carolina Panthers all are about. And so to take the owner who's not that involved every day in the locker room with the guys, with the coaching staff, like, to have that expectation of, guys to just be like, hey, you should know better. Well, yeah, but this is pretty hard. This is pretty hard.
Sonny Divisio, I hope I pronounced your last name right, Sonny, said, when I heard Reich say keep pounding and spoke on Sam Mills, I got hyped. I did too. Yeah, I was like, okay, let's go. Like, okay,
let's go.
You passed the test. There was the Panthers, man, the Panthers social media team is got to be top 5 in the league. Like, they're just on it. And one of the first pictures they posted, one of the first posts was a picture of Frank Wright and Sam Mills on the sideline, I guess getting ready to go out for the coin toss or something in that 1995 inaugural season. And I saw it and I retweeted it and put it up myself. And I was just like, yeah, this is what we want. We want that. We realized we wanted this with Wilkes. Like, if we didn't have Wilkes in that situation, we wouldn't have realized that's what we needed. We would have been looking for the next hot shot offensive coordinator that had nothing to do with here and all that stuff. Wilkes taught us that it's crucial for us as a fan base to feel some sort of attachment to the history that we've all gone through. And the easiest way to do that is through the tree that the Panthers have kind of built. Now, I can hear the people in the back, well, you haven't won anything, blah, 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 blah. This conversation ain't for you. We ain't talking to you. We talking to family.
A lot of teams haven't won a thing.
Yeah, like, it's not like every team in the league but us has won a Super Bowl. Like, there's a handful of teams. There's a couple teams that ain't even been to a Super Bowl. At least, we can say we've been to a couple. I'm looking at you, Cleveland. I'm looking at you, Detroit. Like, there's some squads there that never even sniffed a Super Bowl before. So it's just, I don't know. And I did pronounce it right. Appreciate you, Sonny. Appreciate that. I got one more audio thing before we get out of here, and I thought it was one of the most important things here, because the thing I didn't want to get into last week in the raw emotional aftermath of hiring Frank Wright was the large contingent of folks that were mad that Steve Wilkes didn't get it. And I was seeing a lot of people try to flip it over to, oh, well, he didn't get it because he was black. And like, I'm just like, people are forgetting what David Tepper has done since he bought this team. Like, when Colin Kaepernick and Eric Reid to a default kind of got blackballed from the league for kneeling, who was it that brought Eric Reid back into the league and gave him some money? It was David Tepper. David Tepper, and this was his first year as an owner. Like, he stepped on a lot of owners' toes by doing that, and he didn't care. Like, his front office is one of the most diverse front offices in the entire league. I'm not going to steal the thunder from him. This is comments from Tepper when he was asked about that, and you could tell he was ready to answer it.
I think that you should look first at our executive team and inside the building and look at who we have in different positions inside our building. Our president is a woman. We have probably the most diverse executive team in the NFL right now. We have 2 African Americans. We are probably a minority of white men on our executive team right now. That's where it starts. That's America. Okay, that's the process. And that's the process I'm talking about here. You don't want an old boys network. I don't care. The old boys network works all kinds of different ways. Okay, unfortunately, in this case, it's a detriment because most of the old boys were white. So that should be your main focus. How do you break that old boys network? How do you break that process to get you that old boys network? You break the process by trying to get the best people possible in every role you can do, whether it's the new GC we hired happens to be an African-American woman, whether it happens to be Frank Reich, who's a Caucasian male. I don't care who it is, whether we go through offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, who is the best person? Not whether you had a former relationship with him, not who you knew, but who is that best person? And some of that best person, as Frank said, does come into that chemistry.
Yo, I'm gonna tell you why we mad, son.
Tepper came in with some bars.
Hey, Tepper was dropping bars right there. I just don't. Hey, y'all didn't hear that? If y'all didn't hear that, now see, this goes back to my point earlier. Man, we gotta Tepper is out here doing things.
He is.
He's taking emotion out of it.
Yep.
Taking it out. And he's doing things different and coming with a different approach, bro. Like
I do.
The Good Old Boys Network.
He called it out. Like, how many times do your owner say that?
He didn't call that all the way out. Okay. But listen, how do you really provide change and opportunity? You got to stir it up.
Yep.
Okay. You got to stir it up, and once you stir it up, person that was over here that didn't have that opportunity, once you stir it up, that opportunity is all of a sudden sitting right next to him.
I mean, hell, you could argue he could have gave the interim job to Ben McAdoo.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like, if it was really a situation of him being racist,
this thing matters. What we're seeing, bro, is this matters to Mr. Tepper.
Yep.
The Carolina Panthers matter to him. It matters so much to the fact that, hey, I'm going to do things from left field when it comes to the standard of what people do in this league. I am going to do something that people might not like, but eventually they're going to see that we're going to be a Super Bowl contending team, playoff oriented team, year in and year out, because I'm going to make sure that the Carolina Panthers are staffed, are equipped to make a run at it every year. And so he's a billionaire for a reason, y'all. Like,
that's what I was like. He didn't make $16 billion sitting on his his computer chair
and doing what people told him to do, to Google and to Google what should I do for coaching staff. He didn't sit there and you know what I'm saying, or like hey, my buddy told me that I should get this coach. No,
he Googled top offensive coordinator right now.
I'm gonna go through 12 people, and I'm gonna make sure that I know that I know that I know that I knew what I know, that I knew what I knew then about what I know now about this coach. And so there it is.
Speaking of the coach, Aaron says after his introduction, Coach Reich went straight to the players and shook their hands before going on stage. Thought that was classy. He knows the Panthers culture for sure. I noticed that as well. It's the little things, man. That's what we loved about Wilkes. It's the little things that these players get up for. Reich already has that. Like, I feel like these dudes are going to come out and want to run through a wall for this guy. By the time they get this staff together, especially if I don't know, maybe they have a couple Panthers on this staff before it's all said and done. I could see that. I don't know what Luke's doing right now, but
the one thing that really stood out to me about the whole day was like he kind of almost reminds you of Steve in certain ways because he's very serious. I mean, he can throw in a little joke here and there. I'm talking about the bus rides from Clemson and stuff, but like very serious about this job and about this organization. And I mean, I just feel like there's a clear, I don't know, parallel maybe the right word, but with him and Steve, because they had, I mean, heck, he even brought up win the day in his press conference.
Yep.
So like, I don't think the messaging is going to be that different. And I think, again, with his background and everything, like I think the players are going to love him.
We're going to score more points. Like, who's not going to love that? We're going to score more than 17 points.
Listen to him talk, which just sounds really weird to say, but he's not a guy that's like fiery, that's going to, get you going. But like, there's a confidence in his voice, and that carries a lot of weight.
Steve was the same way. And in retrospect, Rhule was not. And that was something we would talk about season 2 of Bleav in Panthers. We talked about it every week about what is this dude doing at the press conference?
I don't want to talk about Matt Rhule.
He's going to be in the news again next week talking about us.
Listen,
like,
let's not talk about him no more. Unless they win a championship, national championship.
He'll come out and say something like, "Well, we could have won the Super Bowl first year if I had not."
And you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna sit there and say, "You know why I'm mad? Let's move on."
Yeah, exactly. Now,
Yo, I'm gonna tell you why we mad. I'm gonna tell you why we mad, son.
did either one of you guys have something for tell you why I'm mad before we get out of here for the week?
I got a quick one, and I'm glad I saved it because it worked out perfectly. The whole officiating thing, right? That was the thing I was going to unleash last week, but I decided to wait. The officiating in the Bengals-Chiefs game, I don't know what was going on. That was just absolutely bonkers. Like, yeah, he came running in. They showed the sky camera, whatever. But, I mean, we're talking splitting hairs. And that cost a punt. Like, and that didn't they not go down and score on that drive?
Either that or it was a turnover or something.
If anything, regardless, it kept the drive alive.
Yeah,
because getting a first down and all that stuff. But like, my biggest gripe, and I've probably had this as why are you mad before? Why are coaches and players not allowed to talk about the officiating without getting fined?
Yo, I'm gonna tell you why we mad, son. I'm gonna tell you why we mad, son.
Last time I checked, the officiating is a part of the game. And in some instances, not all, it can change the outcome of a game. So, I mean, I would get if a guy's sitting there cursing up a ref in a press conference, yeah, you can slap a fine for that. But to sit there and say that he flat out missed a call or you flat out disagree with the call and you're going to get a $50,000 fine for that, that is ridiculous.
Yeah. That went along with that whole NFL script stuff that's been floating around on Twitter the past, like that every year scripted out. And
dude, what was your script? What was your script?
Yeah, did you look at your scripts too?
Yeah, man, my script was, hey, dog, we're gonna need you to roll your ankle. Okay, roll your ankle. And then make sure you when you go out of bounds, don't go all the way out of bounds so you get bent backwards so your MCL can tear. And then where you catch the screen, okay? This is important. The year of the Super Bowl, before we get to the Super Bowl, this is how we're gonna get there, okay? We're gonna play at Atlanta Falcons at home. You're gonna catch a screen, okay? And defensive lineman, I want you to run slow enough and this is the reason we're running the screen, so that way when you catch it, you're not at full throttle, so that way the defensive lineman can catch up to you, so that he can tackle you and land on your foot to break your foot.
It all makes sense.
And when you break your foot, we're going to put you down for about 3 weeks. You're going to be rested and ready to go for the Seattle Seahawks in the playoffs because that's who we're going to play. Okay, and that's how it's going to work out. And then when you hit that first play, it's going to hurt a little bit, but you got to have your mind, you got to have the psyche. Okay, you got to be thinking about this for the next 3 weeks. Your psyche and what it's going to look like for that first play. And so when you hit that first play, boom. It's gonna hurt, but you ain't gonna think about it because you can be gone right at the middle.
They tell Cam in his script to not go for that fumble.
Yeah,
man, I don't know what you're talking about.
You cannot go after this. Like, don't ruin the whole show.
Don't talk about my dog, man. Leave my dog alone, man.
Hey, special.
We ain't talking about the Super Bowl, man.
Hey, shout out here. In the comments section. We got a good friend of yours, Stu. Steve
Hey,
Smith
that's Steve.
watching us right now. Stu, LOL, Smitty watching you. What's up,
Look at
Steve? We got to
Smitty,
get you
man.
on. We got to get
Hey,
Stu and Smitty. We got to get both y'all on an episode of Bleav in Panthers. And
yeah, man, I'm gonna see if Smitty come over here, man, and bless us with his time.
we will.
He's a busy man. He's a
control.
busy man out there.
Hey, I gotta check his podcast out too because he be on there saying some stuff.
Yeah,
that
he be on it.
Like, yeah.
He be out there
So,
too.
I would honestly love to know, like, seriously, all of these fake scripts. Like, could you imagine what? I mean, Stu just gave a really good one, but I mean, some of these dudes that have been in the league, like, if they could have, gone on, like, I would love to hear what Steve would have to say about that, because that would be
ain't no script to this. It's crazy.
that would be lit.
I didn't even pay it no mind. I started seeing it filtered through Twitter, and I'm like, nope, ain't gonna do it because, like you said, I just watched the Kansas City game, and I'm like,
has he walked back on it yet, or no? Or is he still sticking to it?
nah. As far as I can see on Twitter, it's all still out there. Like he hasn't. I mean, people talk about that all the time, that it's rigged all the time. I'm like, how do you rig an NFL season? You're talking about what, like 4,000 players? Like, just people just want the easy way.
People just want to be talking, dog. They want to be the first person to have the thought that, oh, I told you it was rigged.
Yeah, they will be first.
Man.
You're right. Do you got something for tell them why you mad, Stu?
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you why we mad, son.
So much to go through.
So I'm not sure how this is all going to pan out.
Denver.
My dog Greg Olsen, man, he killing it.
Oh
no!
Oh no!
He is killing it. I mean, he the best right now. Straight up, he the best. Like a lot of people, Tony Romo. Nah,
that's actually
Greg Olsen. Greg Olsen is the cream of the crop right now. And
he is. He's killing it.
Yesterday, or the day before, whenever it was, Tom Brady decided to announce his retirement.
For good.
And I was reminded that this man is about to get paid $375 million to get in the booth. What that means for my boy Greg Olsen, I do not know. And I really hope they work this out because you got to keep him.
Maybe there's
So when I'm mad, I'm not necessarily mad. I'm just I don't know. There's no answers yet, right?
Maybe they put Brady in the studio and let Terry Bradshaw retire. That would be the best thing.
Maybe, I don't know, but like I'm mad that I have to I'm mad that I have to feel this from my dog right now. Like,
yeah. Well, mine, real quick before we get out of here.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you why we mad, son.
Stays in that vein. I thought Tony Romo was a good color analyst, and maybe it's because I haven't been watching him the past year or so. But my man has fallen off a cliff from where he was the first year because he was
because he's too repetitive. Don't nobody want to hear what the play is about to be.
Oh, well, he's not even doing that anymore. That was his whole thing. Like he was like dissecting what it was supposed to be before the play, and you're like, oh, he nailed it. He don't even do that anymore. Now he's just like,
this is what they should be doing. Right. This is what they should be doing right here. They're gonna do it. Oh, they didn't do it. Oh,
he was supposed to run fast, but he ran slow, and that's why he got tackled, Jim. Like stuff like that. I'm like, bro, what? Like they're paying you how much to do this?
You know what he is, and I maybe I'm throwing too much shade. But he is
not here.
He is Walmart brand Chris Collinsworth.
Walmart.
But he turned in that overnight. Like he was the darling. He was the new toy.
Man, shout out to Walmart though. Don't be hating on my Walmart, bro.
Yo, Walmart's the only place in America where you can buy a steak and a tire. That is what it is.
Go get you some Dickies and a steak.
Exactly. I don't know how good the steak's gonna be, but you can get them both while you're in there.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you why we mad, son.
He just fell off, and to Stu's point, Olsen will be in the booth for the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
I don't think they're going to throw Tom Brady in there for his first game to be Super Bowl 57, but that's a question they're going to have to figure out because that's a whole lot of money, man. That's a lot. That's a lot of money to pay.
What they need to do is say, "Hey, Tom, look, Greg is balling, so we're gonna split the proceeds. we're gonna split your money, and we're gonna recalibrate our game plan."
Any chance of a 3-man booth for their number one booth?
Too many cooks in the kitchen.
Yeah.
What they need to be worried about is CBS because, like, if they want to pay the money, great.
Transfer that deal over to CBS and let him take over for. Well, Tony Romo just got an extension after that first year. Well, it ain't nowhere near what Brady's is, but
yeah, that's true.
What was Greg talking on the Pat McAfee show? What was he talking about?
See, Aaron says Greg was on Pat McAfee's show. If you hadn't seen it, they got it clipped. Definitely worth watching. Well, we're at the end of the show now, Aaron. You supposed to tell us that like 40 minutes ago.
Speak up, Aaron. Hurry up and type. Tell us what it was.
What? Now I know Greg has said some things where he was like, I think it was a week or so ago, where I read an article where he was like, yeah, no, I'm kind of keeping the seat warm for Tom. But I'm gonna make it really hard for them to put Tom Brady in the seat, and I'll be damned if he didn't do exactly that through the playoffs. He took his game up. I don't know, man. We're rooting for you, Greg. We need to get him on too. We gotta get some of these Panthers on in the offseason. So we got a wish list.
We'll see if we can get him. We'll start with Smitty.
We get Smitty on.
Jump on here.
Greg on. Hey, I want to get Cam Newton on here, although he might not want nothing to do with the Panthers at this point. But I want to bring Ace Boogie on. I want to bring on some. I've got Thomas Davis's contact info. We got to bring TD back on. He hadn't been on. We'll get some of these guys on during the offseason, keep it interesting. We didn't get into the whole GOAT Tom Brady retires conversation because I really want to have a conversation about, is Tom Brady actually the GOAT?
Man, he's retired and he is the GOAT. He is definitely the GOAT.
Because there's difference. It's like I look at him and like he's Kareem. He's Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He's gonna have all the records. He played 20 years. But is he the great?
I know he's been great, but I just saw a stat. He doesn't have a losing record against anybody in the NFL.
Yeah. Everyone keeps talking about like, oh, he's played the longest. Longevity is a part of greatness.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah, of course.
So if you're talking about, well, of course he has all these because he's played so long. Well, listen, if you 45 and you out there taking, you know what I'm saying?
Man threw for 5,000 yards last year.
Yeah,
over 5,000 yards.
I don't want to hear it. Tom Brady's the greatest. Joe Montana's great too. I mean, listen.
Who are you taking in a Super Bowl though, Montana or Brady?
Brady. God,
Brady.
Really?
If I'm taking, I'm taking.
Montana never turned the ball over. Never lost one. See, and that was my comparison because it's like, to me, Mahomes is like Jordan. We've never seen that before. He does something you're like, I ain't never seen that before. Like, that's different. Yeah. That boy built different. Brady is like Kareem, LeBron, where it's like his longevity, his stats, that resume is so long, you got to include him in the conversation when it's over. But is he the greatest? Like, we've just given it to him because he just played until he was 85 years old or whatever at a high level.
I mean,
push him on the list.
More Super Bowls than any franchise in the NFL.
He's got 7 rings. Like, every time I even have this conversation with myself, I end up losing because I'm like, well, he's got 7 rings.
I mean, if you look at
start there, 7 rings. I don't want to hear it.
He's great. Super Bowl.
He had some weapons some years, but like a lot of those teams that he won Super Bowls with, they were not the best team in the NFL, and in terms of the other pieces he had around him. Like
you take the majority of his receivers he was throwing to, and you put them on other teams to start their career.
They ain't doing nothing.
Shout out to Troy Brown. Who's some of those? Ben Watson. Like, I'm old school Patriots tight ends, wide receivers. They had wide receivers out there playing DB. Like, they were going both ways. So like, Tom wasn't getting hit like Joe Montana, Willie Smith says. So that's a valid point too. Joe Montana had these legs were about this thin, and like, yeah, if you got hit, it was going to be a problem. But Joe never had that issue. That's what I'm saying. This is going to be a conversation we have maybe next week as we get into Super Bowl talk.
I think we'll leave it at that. Efficiency. I'm taking Joe Montana.
Game on the line.
Gonna take the shot.
Tom.
Not even gonna worry about it. Just gonna take it. I'm taking Tom.
Tom will get you a field goal. Joe giving you a touchdown. Like, Joe going down and scoring. Like, and he did it a couple times.
Efficiency comes with decision making, right? Like, I'm not going to take that shot because that's not worth taking.
See, this is going to be a good one.
I'm not going to throw a pick.
We might have a whole episode.
I'm not going to throw a pick. That looks like a pick zone over there.
Everybody marinate on it because we're going to come back to that eventually. And that's going to be one of those ones where we're going to need the fans' help. Like,
no, we're talking about it right now, dog. We're talking about it right now, dog. I ain't going nowhere. We got to talk about it right now. I know we're supposed to go 30 minutes. It's an hour and 14 minutes and 37 seconds.
We're going to triple this out.
So we got to stay right here and sort this out, dog.
28-3, Cody said. I mean, of course there's an argument for him to be the GOAT. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, is he? Like, no one's really came up with that argument. Is he the GOAT? Because it's the same thing with Jordan and LeBron. Like,
Tom Brady the GOAT. LeBron James the GOAT.
What?
No,
whoa.
No, not LeBron. Not LeBron James. Michael Jordan the GOAT. I was reading something and said somebody had put LeBron's name.
Man, you know right. You can't.
Hold on. I was joking. That was a mistake. Michael Jordan the GOAT. Tom Brady the GOAT. Now, I want to throw something out there. 10 years from now, I'm gonna leave it here. This is had nothing to do with football. Everything in basketball. In 10 years, Steph Curry we're going to be talking about Steph Curry in a whole different light. We already starting to talk about it like this.
Yeah.
Because this man has changed. He has changed the game.
He's in my top 10. He moved in my top 10. I think me and Schuyler have talked about this. He moved in my top 10.
He in my top 5.
No,
top 3.
No, I can't move. Mine was Jordan, Kareem, Magic, Kobe, LeBron. That was my top 5 as it stands.
Man, that's your top 5 that you like.
No,
right?
That's my top 5. Now, look at it. Look at
as far as the exposure to
stuff.
the exposure to the game, the what they have done to the game. Steph Curry got little white boys at YMCA.
Oh, I know. They
out there throwing up shots like they like, oh, I can play basketball now.
That's why I moved him in my top 10. He changed how we think.
I'm gonna swat your soul.
He had to get to. He got the 4. He's got 4 rings now, and he's a unanimous league MVP. No one's ever done that. Jordan, Kobe, Matt, none of them. Bird, nobody's ever done that. If he gets to 5,
I'll top you one. Giannis is going to be the GOAT. That boy is nuts.
Oh,
See,
I gotta stop this right here. We're gonna be here.
All right, let's stop.
Because I'm trying to figure this out.
This no more.
Giannis is like Wilt with like handles. Like I'm just trying to. Yeah, see, we'll have this too. It's not just football here. We can get into this greatest. We'll have a greatest debate. Who's the greatest in football? Who's the greatest in basketball? I don't know if any of us care enough about baseball to even bring it up, but who's the greatest? Yeah, we'll just stick with basketball and football because they kind of
Babe Ruth.
They kind of correlate. Out there hopped up on hot dogs and Lord knows what else, just hitting home runs, just popping home runs.
I won't get deep into it. I'm a big baseball guy, but Mike Trout may end up being the GOAT of baseball, and he's never been to the playoffs.
He never plays, though, does he? Isn't he always hurt?
He's been hurt a couple times, but he's fairly durable.
All right.
But
hey,
can't get
Steph
on
Curry. Steph Curry, top 3.
Top 3.
Argue with your mama.
5 to
argue
3.
with your mama or somebody else's mama.
Wow, you went all the way up to 3. I love Steph.
Yeah,
Steph's probably my favorite player in the league right now. So yeah, we definitely gonna get into that. We definitely gonna get into that. Next week,
you gotta hurt feelings to say that though.
Yeah,
you gotta hurt some feelings to say top 3.
Hey, that's a cold. I need an explanation for that when we come back because I can't drop Kobe Bryant out of my top 5 for Steph Curry. I can't.
I'm not dropping Kobe Bryant either. I'm not dropping Kobe Bryant out of that either. Ain't nobody dropping Kobe Bryant out of that.
So wait, you got. Okay, see, we're gonna wait.
Yeah,
we're gonna wait.
I'll say it for you.
Who is your top 3?
Michael Jordan, Kobe, Steph Curry. Argue with your mama.
Oh my goodness. So that's I don't even know.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you why we mad, son. I'm gonna tell you why we mad, son.
We're gonna get to it.
We're
in this offseason. We coming back around to this. So we'll get back to that.
I'm taking those 3 and we winning. Period. Hey, shoot it.
Shout out to Bleav Podcast
Mike,
Network.
we'll steal the ball.
Shout out to betonline.ag. Go get that welcome bonus. Type in Bleav, BLEAV. Get your welcome bonus when you first sign in.
And shout out to all y'all for dealing with us every week.
Yeah, because this one especially, we was all over the place. We had a ball though. We had a whole week to marinate on what we was going to do. We still came in like, well, let's do this and that. And yeah,
we definitely marinated.
We marinated on it. We sat down and just marinated. I think the next episode, usually we go early in the week. Monday, Tuesday, next week probably. We're pretty flexible here.
Yeah.
We float,
Yeah, Monday or Tuesday.
Yeah, somewhere in there. We'll get you going. Usually right around lunchtime. Subscribe to the Tobacco Road Sports Radio YouTube channel. It'll tell you when the new episode's going to come as I put them in. It's at youtube.com/@Tobacco Road Sports Radio. Go subscribe there. You can find the audio versions of this across any major podcast platform, thanks to the Bleav Podcast Network. We will be back next week. We will dissect Super Bowl 57, Chiefs versus the Eagles, as we were in our group chat talking about it as it was going down. The first Super Bowl to feature two black starting quarterbacks in NFL history. It took us 57 Super Bowls to get to this. So it's a big deal. Jalen Hurts, Pat Mahomes, two different styles. We'll get into all of that. There'll probably be some more hires with the Panthers between now and then too. Well, maybe in the next 5 or 6 days. So we'll get into any of that and any Panthers news as well. Tell your friends about us. We out. For Schuyler, Callihan, Jonathan Stewart, I'm Desmond Johnson. You've been watching and listening to the Bleav in Carolina Panthers podcast on Bleav Podcast Networks. Keep at it.